So, Arnaud. So we're gonna just start with so sort of your background, like where you grew up, maybe a little bit about, just your story, your history, and then your education, and then we'll go from there.
All right. You ask the questions, and I'll provide you some answers.
Yeah. So where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in the Netherlands. I grew up in the center of the Netherlands at Hilversum, and Hilversum is really the media center of the country. So we have all the television studios there and the radios there. So that's where I grew up.
Okay.
Pretty normal, I would say.
Yeah. And what did your parents do?
They founded Creative Sound, and that is the largest dubbing studio of the Netherlands. So they make sure that the English-spoken cartoons are Dutch-spoken when they leave their studios. And they were acquired by Ayuno, a large international company.
Okay.
So yeah, they were in the media business as well.
Okay, yeah, and already founders and the entrepreneurial.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah.
Would you say that's where you kind of picked it up? The whole
I would say that it definitely puts you on the spot to perform or to at least try to outperform your parents. So it does.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't say that it's because of them that I started entrepreneurship or became an entrepreneur, but I would say that it definitely showed different options than just the regular education, going to work and then go to pension.
Yeah.
So I would say it definitely showed alternatives.
Yeah. So you would say it really helped influence your decision to become an entrepreneur because you saw the fact that it was really possible. Like you saw, this image of your parents that were actually doing it. Because actually, when I went to the startup weekend as well, I thought, it's inspiring because a lot of people there had already started companies.
Yeah.
And to just see that real people were really doing it, it was just a inspiring kind of thing,
Exactly. Yeah, and it is also that when surrounding yourself with these kind of people, they have a different kind of worldview. Like they are not thinking this is not possible or this is hard. They're like, if it is possible and if it comes to fruition, then we're going to achieve such a grand goal or such a grand vision that it's definitely worth trying and potentially failing for it.
Yeah, for sure.
So
yeah. And then you studied industrial design in TU Eindhoven, right?
Yeah, correct. Okay. Yeah, and you want to know the reason why I studied it?
Sure.
Well, it was because I've got a background in mechanical engineering originally.
Okay.
So just the tough engineering, the formulas, the calculations, etc. And the reason that I quit doing it is because I was combining my studies as a mechanical engineer together with a job, because I wanted to know what an engineer was supposed to do and how it was to live like an engineer.
Okay.
But it was so boring. I could not get my mind around it to really do that, tedious work day after day for years and years before you can really step up and get to the next level of project management or becoming someone who is more creative in the field.
Yeah.
So that's why I stopped mechanical engineering and took a gap year to really explore the potentials. And there I founded my first business as well. And in founding this first business, I had to create and design and engineer a product of my own that solved a problem. And I found it so cool that it was something that I wanted to learn more about. And that's how I got to industrial design.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was also combining the sort of more creative aspects of the design with the engineering. That's sort of where you found what you wanted to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice. And you graduated how many years ago?
Last summer.
Last summer, okay.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean, so if you scroll through your LinkedIn page, you can see that you've had a lot of interesting projects already with product design. So why don't we slowly get into that? What was the first thing that you started?
My very first thing is not mentioned on my LinkedIn page actually.
Okay. This is interesting then.
Because when I was about 12 years old, I moved into a new neighborhood, and I moved far away from the city center where I grew up. And it was actually a very boring place for very boring old people neighborhood.
Okay.
Because there were all the retired teachers were living there, and I was like, this is so dull actually. So I was thinking I loved computers. I just loved to build my own computer because I loved gaming. I had this competition going on with my family, who could build the biggest PC. And I was like, I like to do this. So why don't I just post an article in the neighborhood pamphlet or in the neighborhood papers, and see if I could offer computer services or even build computers for these old people. I was like, this is a perfect product market fit, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So this kind of took off. And I was this 14-year-old guy being called for Wi-Fi problems, email problems, and the problems that you know from your own grandpa and grandma. So this was the first experience I had with entrepreneurship.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, an experience like that definitely already shows you that, like, yeah, if you do it right, then you can...
Yeah, so that was really cool.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And after that, I started selling these gadgets for iPhones and Androids because I was in high school and everyone was, like, using their phones and trying to, like, customize them, get custom cases, custom cables, custom everything, actually. And I was like, this is a nice market, let's try it out. Mm-hmm. And that is also where I first failed in doing something, because I was like, okay, well, let's buy a big bunch of products from AliExpress and I'll just sell it in the locker rooms at my high school. But, well, nobody really bought these things, so I had like thousands of these cases and iPhone cables at home. I was like, shit, what to do with them? So in the end, I just donated them to the Voedselbank, which is a place for people to go when they need to have food or can't pay for their own food. And all companies donate things like leftovers from the departments of the supermarkets, and also gadgets or accessories that are hard to sell. Mm-hmm. So I just donated them in the end and just saw like, well, let's take my losses here.
Okay. But they actually had phones and everything to use it with.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, that's the funny thing. Yeah, I mean, a smartphone is almost like a primary life support thing to have, right?
Yeah, like my friend in quick offshoot. My friend in India, like, he was driving down a road once, and there's like these people lying on the side of the road. Like, they didn't have any. Like, they were clearly didn't have enough to eat, but they were still on the side of the road lying on like a piece of cardboard with like a tablet watching Netflix. Yeah, so it's just like it was the most strange 21st century phenomenon.
Right.
But yeah, I guess that can happen.
Yeah, exactly.
So then after the phone cases, then
I had a small gig of selling illegal fireworks. I don't know if I should tell this, but I mean, it was like 10, 15 years ago, 11 years ago to be exact. And well, it was fun, but up until the point when the police catches your car and they're like, hey, can we check your trunk?
Oh, and so is that what happened?
Well, it was like in the Netherlands, from Belgium to the Netherlands and from Germany to the Netherlands, the police sets up these traps around New Year because of people trading illegal fireworks. Yeah. So we drove into one of these traps, but we were lucky that there was a sports car behind us, which caught all the attention of the police cops and the police agents. So we did not get checked. But the trunk was loaded with like these boxes branded with dynamite, and it was not real dynamite, but I mean like they branded as such, and I was like, shit, if we're gonna get caught, we're gonna go into jail, you know. So that was the moment we decided, like, okay, well, that was it. This is the last trip we're doing.
Yeah.
And
So you bought it in Belgium and then
I sold it in the Netherlands. Yeah. And these kids, I mean, we were going to high school in one of the richest neighborhoods of at least Het Gooi. The Netherlands is like this neighborhood of cities, or this collection of cities where rich people live. Mm-hmm. So these people had a lot of money, and especially the kids were very spoiled. And I was like, let's work with that, you know. Mm-hmm. So I doubled or sometimes tripled the prices of all the fireworks that I was selling, and everyone paid like without problems. And people even forgot that they paid, or they forgot that they had fireworks laying around with me. And it was like hundreds of euros going around and being forgotten, and I don't know. It was a super strange market.
Okay.
But that was one of these things like you're like on the edge of being illegal and doing legal things with entrepreneurship.
Okay.
But also where I decided that that I don't want to be the illegal side, because if you're getting caught, it's not worth the
for sure.
The results are not weighing up to it.
Yeah.
I would say.
Because I lived in Belgium for 5 years, and we also bought some of the fireworks there at some point, and they are hardcore. Like, they're actually like. I can see why it's a little illegal.
Yeah, exactly. But it was a nice experience as well.
Yeah. I mean, you had to really sell it on the street then and everything, or
no, locker rooms.
Locker rooms.
Yeah, so I mean, we avoided the cameras of the concierge, and we're just trading like it was like drugs trading, you know. People could come pick it up at my house, like not inside my house, but like at the porch, and and I would share like the order sheets in the lockers, and they would pay me cash. It was super shady, but I mean, it was super nice to do it, like to feel the thrill and everything.
Indeed. Interesting.
Yeah.
And then after that, then you went to
engineering school. No,
Okay.
wait. I first also got to apply to the Air Force, to the Dutch Air Force.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to become a fighter pilot. That was the dream. That was the goal, and I was not thinking beyond that at all. Like, it was like I'm gonna become a pilot.
Just do that. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But of course, when you have been in the trainings and in the selection for almost 1.5 years, you're coming to the point where everything comes together. The medical check.
Mhm.
And then it turned out that I was colorblind or color dyslexic,
Oh.
so I couldn't
Yeah.
distinguish green and red sufficiently to become a jet fighter pilot.
Yeah.
So that's when your dream shatters, and where you're just going to go with engineering, the plan B, which you didn't think about because that wouldn't happen anyways, right?
Yeah.
So that is like dream shattering and getting into a field that you don't like at all, like engineering. I didn't like it so much. So.
But I mean, eventually you got into entrepreneurship, so I guess it kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a depression. It takes a realization of going the wrong direction and focusing on the wrong things. But I would also say it's part of growing up, really.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then I saw a few other businesses.
Yeah, that's when Banana Crime started.
The Banana Crime.
Yeah, so that was my
Okay.
very first officially registered startup that I did, or startup. I would say small business rather than startup. And it was in my gap year after engineering. I had done some skills in 3D printing, 3D modeling, and sketching because I just wanted to learn on creating products, right? And at home we had a large aquarium, and it was coming without the lid on the top, and these fish regularly jumped out of the aquarium. So that was a problem my parents had. And since I was free and I was bored and I was like, what am I going to do with my life? My father said, like, why don't you solve this problem, right? I was like, I might be able to solve this. So I started sketching, started 3D printing, and got up with the first ideas of covering the aquarium without putting a lid on top of it. Because the lidless design, like the open design, was key to the aquarium they had. It was a style thing. So I tried to come up with something that was invisible, but still kept the fish inside like a lid would do.
Oh, okay.
So they started off with very chunky fences that I would put on top of the aquarium, like avoiding fish to jump too far away from the rims and too far away from the edges, and presented that to my uncle. And my uncle was having an aquarium shop. And he was like, this is nice, this is a big problem in the market, but can you make it invisible, like truly invisible? And I was like, I might be able to. So I started sketching again and creating and printing, etc. And then I came to a design that he also thought like, oh well, this is pretty cool. I'm going to refer you to an international distributor and also a product manufacturer for aquariums. And I was like, well, sure, let's see where it goes, right? So I just went there, had them sign an NDA, and presented them the product like, hey, this is going to solve the problem of your industry, right? It's going to be a bestseller. It's going to be like a top-notch product. So they said, well, sure, we want to have it. So by Christmas, 23rd of December of, I think 2016 it was, they signed the deal, they signed the contract that I made in Word. I was like writing it myself, imagine a 20-year-old or 19-year-old, I was 19 by the time, writing a contract like which should be enforceable when things go wrong. So it was, looking back at it, it was total shit. It was total shit. And I also learned a lot from the mistakes in it. But they signed it, and I had this deal going, sold my first 1,000 products to them, or at least had a prepayment for 1,000 products in royalties. And they would take care of everything. Marketing, production, distribution, sales. But then you also start to realize a year and a half later, when the product is not yet in store, that you made some mistakes in your contract. There's no minimal production per year. There's no deadline for getting the product to market. There's no clear distinction on who is going to do what and what the tasks that you defined are specified as. So doing sales is so broad that they said like, yeah, I mailed some people, we're doing sales. I was like, what do you even mean? That's not how you do sales, right? You're going to go out there, you're going to go to expos, you're going to show the product, you're going to make it, you're going to distribute marketing materials for it, right? And then they said, yeah, no, that's for the product creator. I'm like, But we discussed it. Yeah, no, we did
yeah.
not discuss it, they said. And I was like, yeah, we did. And I had vivid memories of discussing it, but they really were taking me on the bad contract because they couldn't enforce it. So the product got to market eventually, but it didn't sell at all. It sold, I think, a couple of 100 units. And there was a second product launch that is pretty successful for the industry.
Okay.
But that I already did in a different way. I was more in control of the product, and the partner was more committed in getting the product out there. So I learned so many things there from really failing in.
And it started with the contract then. It was really badly written contract.
Yeah. If I had just asked someone who is known with law and known with these kind of contract writing, then I would have covered so many problems there. And I also enforced a patent after the fact. So the contract was signed on an NDA. I had a patent written up, and then said like, hey, here's a patent that you can use to protect your product when you're selling it. But they were not interested at all, and I was just paying a lot of money for this patent.
Okay. Yeah.
So everything was wrong on the process there.
Yeah. Okay.
Even though the product was nice, I would say, but everything was going not as it was supposed.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's always what they say, like the fact that the execution is like half the job of
That's
the idea
100%
and the
true.
execution, and the law is like a big part of the execution. Would you recommend people to hire lawyers then, at least for like a small consulting? Because I've heard that advice also last weekend that like if you're coming out with something, it's probably better to spend a little bit initially to get a lawyer for like an hour or two, and then like really, you know what I mean? Yeah,
I would advise to do so. However, I like the learnings that I've had there.
Okay.
So it's a trade-off. If you hire a lawyer to do it, then the next time if you don't have a lawyer and you're discussing these kind of things, then you're not able to truly distinct whether something is a good idea or a good deal or not. So then you always need a lawyer to cover some pitfalls for you.
Yeah. Okay.
So the learnings are very valuable that I've had.
That's true.
However, I would have liked to see the product be better introduced to the market and to the partners. So I would advise to do so. Yeah.
Okay.
To avoid problems.
Just check how much time we have. And then after the aquarium business, is there anything else?
Yeah, a lot of things actually. I'll stick to the most interesting ones.
Yeah.
First of all, I tried to drag the aquarium business into my first 2 years of university, because I was feeling that I had to deliver another product, get the business or the brand growing, because I was like, yeah, this is nice. It could be nice. It could become nice, but I was also feeling like it was a dead horse. But I pulled onto it too long, so I had to quit it at some point. Like, okay, it's not going to work. Accept it and move on. And the most interesting thing that came after it was a business that flowed, or an idea that flowed from a project from university. And it was a partner or a problem owner that said like, hey, we want to make smart buildings possible using existing infrastructure. So using fire safety equipment that is installed throughout every building, in the Netherlands at least, and it's installed like on spatial intervals. So you have a fire extinguisher in every X meters, you have a smoke detector in every X meters, you have exit signs every now and then. And if you can use these products to add sensors to see what parts of the building are being used, what parts are not being used, what the air quality is, etc., etc., you can optimize the cleaning cost and the maintenance cost for facility managers. So that would reduce cost for them, and it would also make the building more sustainable in the sense that you're not unnecessarily cleaning or unnecessarily replacing parts or refurbishing things with the building. That was the hypothesis anyways. So my colleague and I were like, my fellow student and I were like, okay, well, we're going to do this. We're going to create a business out of this. And the problem owner was like, I want to invest in this. I want to invest in this business. So we started writing up this business plan, this pitch, and doing the research, talking to facility managers, talking to investors, talking to product creators, essentially. And when the point was there that we were ready to take in the investment of the problem owner, he was like, yeah, my friends from golf say that it's not a good idea. because the market position is not strong.
Okay.
And we felt something similar, like we were unsure whether smart buildings were really solving a problem, or whether it was just hype, or whether it was just like...
When was this?
This was, I think it was the second year of my university, like right after
So
the...
2019,
I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess it's 2019.
Okay.
Maybe even 2018. There's so many things that happened that I'm totally not sure what the exact date is.
Okay, yeah.
But I think it's 2018 or 2019. I think 2018 even. Yeah, that was second year. So the investor said like it's unsure whether the position of this product is strong enough to launch it, that they have to take the risk, like take a gap year and really get into this, right?
Yeah.
And my fellow student and I were like, yeah, we feel something similar, so it makes sense. Okay. And we'll let it go, right? So then we said that, and the investor said like, hey, but I want to offer you a job because you need to do an internship. We also had mentioned like we're going to look at an internship as an alternative. And he said like, yeah, you can do an internship and introduce a product at my company as interns. And we were like, it's kind of fishy, right? At one point you're wanting to invest the money that we need to launch the product and create it and get a business going. And now you're trying to get us as interns. So we also got like an offer as interns with a budget that was less than a tenth of what we need to get the product to market. I was like, okay, well, this seems to be a money question, right? So we tried to negotiate a salary out of it, like, sure, we can do it, but we need to have a full salary. We need to have sufficient budget to introduce the product. And he was like, no, you're going to learn a lot. I'm going to mentor you, and you're going to finish your studies. And we were like, this feels so bad. It feels like he's taking advantage of our position, right? So we said, no, we're not going to do this. We're just going to continue our studies. We're not going to do an internship with you, because we also could do an internship with Google or Microsoft, because our university had ties with them. So that was the idea, right? So we said no, had it go over. But what turned out, like a year later, we spoke again with the same investor, just because we also knew the guy at some point. And he was like, yeah, so my personnel is currently building your product and we're introducing it, etc., etc., etc. I was like,
oh man,
you did it. You did not do this, right? So in hindsight, we should have said, like, when he said the market position wasn't strong, we should have said, like, hey, can we talk to your friends, see why not, and what they would suggest to make the position stronger. And also talk with facility managers whether they see it the same way. Because if you can get a letter of intent of a facility manager, like, hey, I support this product, and I can work with this, I would like to see this product come to fruition because I have the problem, then you can say to the investor, like, hey, this is the data that we got, this is what your friends are saying, and this is why we think we should still do it.
Yeah.
So that's also another learning of how not to do it or how not to go about it.
Oh wow, that's
so that was an interesting thing as well.
But you already had specific like working prototypes when you approached him.
Yeah.
And were they patented or?
No, it was no.
I guess not.
No, exactly. But the good thing is that when a client is working with the university and when students are working with the university says like the IP is ours, so that students can't be misused or can't be worse off when their IP is stolen by the client.
Right.
So the client did not have the right to use the IP that we created unless we distance ourselves from it. And we distance ourselves from it verbally. Like, hey, we're not going to do this.
Oh. Okay.
So it feels like, in hindsight, it was like, it felt a bit wrong or like, it had some weird feelings to it, but
yeah.
I don't know.
Wow, that's quite a story.
Yeah.
And then after that, any more?
Yeah, on the sidelines I did some product designs for a Swiss company, for a Dutch company, and for an expo right before COVID. So there was like, I was a freelance product designer on the side. So that was something that I did, but it's not really worth mentioning in the sense of entrepreneurship, I would say. But what's worth mentioning is like doing sales and acquisition, because you really need to sell yourself. So I just went through my own personal network and offered them my services and just made sure that everyone knew that I was doing product design and they could do it and that they loved to do it. And then some of them were like, hey, I want to have a product for either an expo or for display or for prototyping. And they're just going for it. And that was a nice way of making some extra money on the side, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd like to talk a little bit more about the future of product design. So I don't know all that much. I worked with 3D printers before and like 3D modeling and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But what do you see as like some interesting trends in the industry? Would you know? Like technological trends, for example, like I've heard of metal printing, like metal 3D printing. Have you ever looked into that or?
Yeah, I have looked into it, but to be very honest, after the product design freelance jobs, I didn't really pursue it any further.
Mm-hmm.
So my knowledge stops really at what you're saying. Like I'm not up to date at the moment on what's happening there.
Okay. And then generative design.
I would say that's a really cool subject.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a subject that I do understand it up to some level, but I'm unable to work with it at the moment.
Okay, yeah.
And I think I won't be in the future. Maybe as a hobby, but not for professional professional work.
And what do you see any other interesting like companies or people that are doing interesting things in that space, or that you would know?
In the
any,
product
like,
design
emerging
space.
trends in product design.
I think that especially like the high performance luxury car brands or high performance brands or companies in general apply different kinds of design techniques, which are just too expensive to employ for the masses.
Yeah.
So we start looking at a Bugatti that's experimenting with 3D printed brake calipers or 3D printed engines. Then I would say that those companies are really paving the ways for other car companies or other companies to follow along, because when you can prove that there's a significant improvement in either cost reduction or efficiency or performance increase, that it is worth investing in getting the volume up to speed and making sure that the cost per unit drops so it can be employed for the masses or can be used for the masses. So I would say that especially these most expensive brands or companies are worth looking into.
Okay.
Because of their ability to really go there, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So that's what I would say on trends.
Yeah. I mean, I guess obviously, you also have Apple and things like that. Which, did you research Apple when you were like studying product design or?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Especially when you're like designing your own product. It is like Apple's like the holy grail of product design, right?
Yeah.
But also we start researching what they're doing. It's like their techniques are so expensive that if you are a starting company or a small company trying to achieve the same level, you're not ever going to get to market.
Yeah. Okay.
So yes, they are a leading brand in the industry, in any industry. But they're not the thing you want to pursue when you're starting off. Maybe for a grander vision, yes, but definitely stick with delivering value to your customers rather than delivering both on super cool trend-setting design and manufacturing technologies and delivering value. I would really pick the value part.
Yeah.
Over.
As starting out as.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so I've actually talked to quite a few people who are sort of interested in building their own products or who come up with product ideas, but then have really no clue how to like take it from the idea to like the next step. Some people know how to work with 3D printers, but 3D printers are for prototypes. Like that's sort of their main application.
Yeah.
So how, like very concretely, how does it go down between having a 3D printed prototype with like Arduino and stuff and having selling 5,000 units to a retailer? So you have to set up a contract with a factory or like a manufacturer, right?
Yeah. So to go over the process really briefly is, the hypothesis here is that you have a problem worth solving, right? And you have an idea for a solution that adds value to your target audience that experiences the problem, right? So if you have that part in place, and you have your 3D printed prototypes that you can test with your target audience, and it's all confirmed, like you have a potential product market fit, and people like it, then you start to work towards a small series production, right? So that's the first series that you produce, like 5 or 6 units that represent the final product. So it's a series 0, or actually even before that, I would say like the pilot series. With this pilot series, you're again going to test with your target audience, because in the prototyping phase, your target audience or your users that you're testing with really need to imagine a lot of things, because it's probably not fully functional and not looking the way you want it to look. So when also your pilot series are indeed confirmed or are iterated upon because you have some lacking details or some things that your user said like, I don't like this part so much, then when that stage is completed, then you're gonna see if you can start already work on relationships and sales with distributors, with retailers, and manufacturers. So that's the part where you start to get to an expectation of volume, because you really need to have potential buyers in place, and maybe even letter of intent to sell your product to them before you really start to say okay to or give an accord to production. Because the production part has high upfront cost, making your molds, making your distribution go, making your boxes, making your thing work out. So you need to make sure that you can indeed also sell the products before you start producing 5,000 units or 1,000 or any number of units. So once you have your volume indication in place and have your market saying like, hey, I want to have this product, I want to purchase it, then you can start your production. And then I would also make sure that before your production is actually running, you have your hype going on, your marketing going on, that people know what to expect and what's coming up. Because if you're only starting marketing after production is done, you're going to be outcompeted by the time that your customers know your product exists.
Yeah.
So that's super important, like getting your marketing there, getting production going, and getting your sales in place.
Okay.
That's what I would say there. And then it's just about selling your product, but that's the part of your buyers. And I think if you look for more the top of the pyramid, like your distributors, if they sell to retailers, then you can more easily get to large units, but distributors are also harder to convince.
Yeah.
I mean, a local retailer can buy 5 units from you, nice, but a wholesaler can buy 1,000 units from you, even better, but it also needs more persuasion, I would say.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we're, I think, coming up to the end, but do you want to maybe talk about like kind of what you're working on now, or anything that you want to get a little bit more publicity, or like your LinkedIn, or how can people find more about what you're working on?
I would definitely follow me on LinkedIn if you want to know what I'm working on. It's a pity that I'm under NDA and that we're too early stage to really throw this out in the open. But I think there's really cool things coming up with relation to empowering young people to make a change in or make a stand or take a stand in climate change. And besides just taking a stand, also taking action, like concrete action. And this is just like, not that you need to go follow with climate marches and really need to take activism action or like start shouting at your government, but rather like low barrier of entry action taking.
Yeah.
So that's accessible for everyone and that everyone can participate. It's inclusive. It's actually having impact. It is making sure that the future generation, us, are really going to be the ones creating the future.
Yeah. And
not waiting for governments and VCs and money-hungry fat rats taking them. Yeah, people. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And that's something that I'm working on at the moment.
I think in general that's like sort of one of the cool things about entrepreneurship is that like a lot of people talk about like we should do this, we should do that, but entrepreneurs really design the future. I think, and that's sort of and I think on that note, that was a good ending statement. So
nice.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Nice talking.
Nice talking to you.